The Beast of the Billabong, Chapter 1, Into the Wild. The Australian outback had always been a place of untamed beauty and lurking danger, where nature's raw power lay in ambush for the unprepared. For Jack, Sarah, Tim, and Chloe, it was the perfect destination for their annual camping trip, a break from the mundanity of city life. They had chosen an isolated area near a winding river, known locally as the Bilabong, far from the noise and distractions of civilization. The land stretched endlessly before them, rugged and wild, a mixture of red earth, towering eucalyptus trees, and the shimmering water that cut through the landscape like a silver blade. As they arrived at their campsite late in the afternoon, the sun cast a golden glow across the landscape. The air was thick with the scent of gum trees, and cicadas droned in the distance. The river glistened in the dying light, peaceful and inviting, yet holding secrets beneath its tranquil surface. Tim stretched and grinned at the others. Nothing like the great outdoors, right? This place is perfect. They set about assembling their tents, laughing and chatting. The conversation was light until an old man appeared from the nearby bush. His worn face was etched with deep lines, and his clothes were sun-bleached from years spent under the harsh Australian sun. He moved with a limp, leaning on a weathered cane, but his eyes, sharp and bright, showed he had seen far more than most. "You lot be careful round here," the old man said in a gravelly voice that seemed to come from deep within the earth. "Not safe in these parts, especially near the water." Jack, always the skeptical leader of the group, smiled politely. "What do you mean?" "Crocodiles," the man replied. "Big ones. There's one in particular. Locals call him Buster. Mean as they come, and he's been more active lately. A few cattle were taken down just last week. He's a salty, easily 25 feet, maybe more." Chloe shuddered, her eyes flickering nervously toward the river. "Is it common for a saltwater crocodile to be this far inland?" The old man nodded, his expression grave. "Uncommon, but not impossible. Rivers like this one sometimes connect to the sea. Buster's been lurking around these parts for decades. You see those signs?" He pointed to several metal placards lining the riverbank. Each bore the same warning: crocodile-infested waters, do not enter. Tim chuckled, brushing off the warning. "Relax, we're not swimming in the river. We're here to enjoy the trip." The old man fixed him with a stare, unblinking. "Don't think you're safe just because you don't see him. Crocs are patient hunters. Buster's been here long before you, and he'll be here long after." With that ominous statement, he turned and shuffled back into the brush, disappearing as suddenly as he had arrived. A strange silence fell over the group, the playful mood shattered. "Creepy," Sarah muttered. Jack tried to shake off the lingering unease, probably just trying to scare us off. "Let's get the fire going." Chapter 2, The Call of the River. As night descended, the air cooled, and the group gathered around the campfire, flames flickering against the inky sky. Laughter returned, stories were shared, and bottles of beer were passed around. The river, a short distance away, sparkled under the moonlight, the soft whisper of its current almost beckoning. Tim, emboldened by alcohol and his usual cocky demeanor, stood up and stretched. "I say we go for a swim. Old man's probably full of it. Crocs or not, the water looks too good to pass up." Chloe shot him a look of disbelief. "Did you not hear a word he said? There's a giant crocodile in that water." "Come on, it's not like we'll be swimming in the middle of the river. A quick dip won't hurt," Tim grinned. Jack, emboldened by Tim's confidence and the booze, nodded. "Yeah, let's just stay near the shore. It's hot as hell out here. What's the worst that could happen?" Chloe and Sarah exchanged worried glances, but reluctantly agreed. The temptation of cooling off was too strong to resist. As they approached the river, stripping down to their swimwear, the night seemed to grow quieter. The water felt cool against their skin, a welcome relief from the sweltering heat. They laughed and splashed in the shallow water, all sense of caution forgotten. But after a while, Chloe's laughter stopped. She glanced around uneasily. "Did you guys hear that?" The others fell silent, listening. At first, there was nothing, only the steady ripple of the river against the bank. Then, faintly, a soft splash echoed across the water, as if something large had just entered it. A sudden chill crept down Chloe's spine. "Let's get out," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. "Now!" Before anyone could react, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the night. Tim, who had been further from the shore, was thrashing wildly in the deeper water. "Tim!" Jack shouted, rushing toward him. But before he could reach him, something massive surged from the river with terrifying speed. The moonlight caught the scales of a giant beast, Buster. The crocodile's massive jaws closed around Tim's leg, dragging him under the surface in one powerful motion. Chloe and Sarah screamed in horror as the water exploded in a frenzy of movement. The beast's tail lashed the surface, creating waves that sent Jack stumbling backward. Tim's cries were drowned out by the sound of thrashing water. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the river grew still again. The only trace of Tim was the faint ripples spreading across the surface. He was gone. Chapter 3. The Aftermath. The three remaining friends stood in stunned silence, paralyzed by the horror of what had just unfolded. The once peaceful river, bathed in the moon's soft glow, now seemed like a dark and menacing graveyard. "We need to get help," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. Jack, trembling with shock, nodded. He had been closest to Tim, had seen the terror in his friend's eyes as the monster dragged him under. The image played over and over in his mind, a living nightmare that refused to fade. They staggered back to the campsite, Sarah fumbling for her phone. Her hands shook as she dialed the emergency services, recounting the attack through sobs and shallow breaths. The police arrived at dawn, their faces grim as they questioned the group and took down details of the nightmarish incident. A search team was dispatched to the river, but it was clear to all involved that Tim would not be found. Jack, Sarah, and Chloe huddled together, watching as boats combed the river. They knew the truth. Tim was gone, taken by a predator that had ruled these waters for decades. The officers spoke in hushed tones about Buster, the elusive saltwater crocodile who had become a local legend. No one had ever managed to capture him, and some believed he had grown too cunning, too deadly to ever be caught. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, Jack realized that they had been warned, but they hadn't listened. The beauty of the Bilabong had been deceptive. Beneath its serene surface, ancient predators still reigned, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim. And somewhere, hidden in the dark depths of the river, Buster lurked, patient as ever, ready for the next fool who thought they were safe.